Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. Now that my two obligatory informative videos are done for the day, it's time to talk about current events in the online fitness community. And I had a subscriber ask me this question in the comments about a week ago. I put it in my notes to get around to it, and I just didn't have time to get to it till today. But he asked me, do you think it's possible that Dave Asprey, for those who don't know who that is, the guy who owns and founded Bulletproof Nutrition, do I think he's a psychopath? Let me put on my plus 5 out of weaponsmithing, work on skilling up my crafting a little bit, and let's talk about this. All right, I want to make two little disclaimers up front before we get further into that. Number one, I don't think we have enough information on this person, and I'm certainly not qualified to make this diagnosis. But no, I don't think that we can just look at someone's behavior as a public figure in isolation and actually make a diagnosis of something like that just based upon certain factors. I don't think we can do that. All right, I don't think that's possible. That's not how this works. You would need a psychologist to sit him down and interview him to make a diagnosis like that. So that's not what we're going to do. We're just going to look at a reasonable assumption at some of this stuff. The other thing is, because a person's a psychopath, does that automatically make them an evil person who's going to go out and become a mass murderer, or the things that we have been told by movies that they're going to do? No, not necessarily true. But people who are psychopaths are more likely, statistically, to wind up, say, in prison for a violent crime. Right? They're just more likely to do so. There are a lot of other things they're just more likely to do. It doesn't mean that they are not going to be high-functioning individuals, or that they're going to go kill people or do terrible things. That's not like automatic just because someone's a psychopath. So, what we can look at is his overall behavior and say, is some of his behavior itself indicative of psychopathology? And I think the answer there is clearly yes. I think that's the case, clearly yes. Number two, we can look at what demographics of people tend to be psychopaths. People say, well, yeah, people in prison for violent crimes. Yeah, that's a big demographic. What are your other two? CEOs and owners of businesses, like people who are very, very, very high up the corporate ladder. There's your other big demographic. Politicians, right? There's your three. Violent criminals, politicians, high-ranking businessmen. That's your biggest pool of psychopaths. Those are the careers psychopaths are drawn to, as a general rule. Politicians, businessmen, bank robbers, mass murderers. That's kind of the way psychopaths go. That's just the sort of career choices they tend to be attracted to. They do very, very well in those. People who are psychopaths tend to do very well in politics, and they tend to do very well in business because they can set personal ethics to the side, they can set empathy to the side, and they can be very calculated. All right, that's just a reality. They're drawn to those things, and they tend to be good at business. Well, he's a successful businessman, and he runs a business at the expense of other people, to the point to where some of it could be considered borderline sadistic, and that's the point we need to get to. And that's something I want to talk about, that this industry itself, the whole fitness industry, is ripe with, which is ironic because you have an industry that supposedly caters to health and fitness that oftentimes does anything but. Oftentimes things are promoted that are directly harmful to your health. Now, we could argue, relatively speaking, is what they recommend more harmful to your health than, say, I don't know, eating McDonald's for 3 meals a day? No, most of it isn't. But it's certainly not healthy. And a perfect example, all right, let's look at the fact that he sells a Bulletproof diet, which is basically a very high-fat diet, where he can sell you products and things like Bulletproof coffee. We know that this is not recommended by everyone, from medical doctors to registered dietitians. The vast majority, the vast overwhelming majority of registered dietitians and medical doctors will tell you, do not do a ketogenic diet outside of the care of a physician and a health professional. And I tell people the same thing. That's what the data indicates. They're not safe for you to do this sort of diet on your own. A bunch of people are going to come in and freak out, and the keto tards and be like, oh my God, I can't believe you said that. I'm telling you what the top experts in the world say. All right, and it has nothing to do with Ansel Keys' 7 Nation studies, before you guys throw that out there. It has to do with real modern human studies, what we know in the real world. These diets are not as safe as you've been led to believe by the people who made money off of them, ranging from Dr. Atkins all the way up to people like Dave Asprey. They're not safe. And anyone who doesn't believe that is willfully ignorant. They're not looking at what the top experts are saying. All right? And because you choose to remain willfully ignorant, that's your problem. That's your own problem. That's not my problem. If people want to kill themselves with a terrible diet because they've been led to believe that it's a great diet, that's their business. But the thing is, that's willful ignorance. At least most of the average American who's on the average American diet knows their diet's unhealthy. They know it's unhealthy. They know they don't eat good. The problem with this is that people actually think that they're eating good just because it's slightly less unhealthy than the typical American fast food diet. It isn't as bad as that, but it's not a healthy diet. It's not. And there's plenty of data to show that point. If the majority of people, your blood work's not going to look particularly good even a year into a ketogenic diet. There are going to be health concerns in there. All right, it's not ideal. Yet he promotes it, sells it, and even you have people like Aragon, who's again a very respected expert in the online fitness world, does have his graduate degree in nutrition. He even preps guys, so people even want to talk about the whole bodybuilding thing. Hell, he preps bodybuilders for shows. Now we could argue about the ethics of that point, but you know, different topic entirely. He at least knows how to get guys aesthetic, in addition to actually knowing what he's talking about when it comes to fat loss and everything else. Aragon will tell you that's the craziest thing he's ever heard of, Bulletproof coffee. Adding 500 calories of liquid fat to your diet first thing in the morning, of mostly saturated fat, in the form of butter, is absurd. It's absurd. That is not even remotely close to what you should be doing for optimal health or fat loss. And of course, Alan's big deal is he is very against carbophobia in general. He believes that all the demographic data and clinical trials, metabolic ward data shows being afraid of carbs is absurd. It's not based on reality. It's not based on real science or reality. It's not even based upon common sense observing populations and demographics. He'll knock that apart. And so, you know, your whole idea is that you got a guy who is just selling that and fat water. He's going to sell you fat water. Again, this is making a fortune at the expense and ignorance, but at the expense of the health of your consumer. That's pretty unethical behavior. I think we can all agree with that. And, you know, I would say anyone who's out there marketing ketogenic diets who claims to have read the research, who isn't aware of all the research, they only read the pro-keto research, they don't read the other stuff, is maybe being willfully ignorant. But in this case, this is someone making a lot of money off of it. Then, as if that's not bad enough, he put out that whole protocol, which I discussed a while back, of how to sterilize and inject your own urine to help with your allergies. Now, of course, he puts in the disclaimer, and again, fanboys will jump up and say, well, that's okay because, you know, he put a disclaimer in saying, I'm not advocating that you do this. If a person who is a respected authority with fans gets up and says, I personally do this, and here's a step-by-step guide of how to do it, but my disclaimer is that, no, you don't, I don't want you to do this, but I'm going to tell you how to do it just for educational purposes, and it's something that stupid and dangerous, you need to understand that's not being said to stop people from doing it because he knows people are going to do it. He's claiming it helped him personally, and here's how you do it. And people listen to him. He has millions of people who listen to him. That is basically giving you license to go do it. Here's how you actually do it. Here's the process. All right, the disclaimer isn't there to stop you from doing it. The disclaimer is there so that when you die, your family can't sue him. In other words, it's allowing him to hurt people with a disclaimer that will prevent his losses in court if people try to sue over being harmed by his extremely dangerous, reckless advice. See how that works? That's not called being a good guy. I don't really want you to do it. That's like, I want you to do it, but here's how I'm going to tell you that I want you to do it without me getting sued. Now tell me that behavior is not psychopathic. Doesn't necessarily mean he's a psychopath. But again, you talk about psychopathic behavior. There you have it. And this is a case, you know, of, again, we could argue about whether he is or isn't a psychopath isn't relevant, because not every person who's a psychopath goes out and harms people, and plenty of people cause harm who aren't psychopaths, right? So the real question becomes not is he a psychopath, but is he going to seriously hurt people with what he's putting out? And I think the answer is yes. I think the answer is yes. His diets, his advice, and then this protocol about how to sterilize and inject your own urine is going to hurt people. That's going to hurt people. This is extremely dangerous advice. And it's just flat out scary how someone like that can build a cult following and convince people to do extremely stupid things. And I'm going to tell you right now, if your goal is fat loss, yeah, dissolving 500 calories of butter in your morning coffee is pretty stupid. It's pretty stupid. I mean, just anyone who knows basic nutritional science, basic stuff about satiety, that's pretty bad. That's pretty dumb. It really is. Then we take it a whole step further of he can convince people to inject their own urine. I mean, damn. At a certain point, you got to look at someone like that who's doing this, and you have to go, is he enjoying this? Is this someone who is saying this knowing they can keep pushing the envelope and get people to do stupid stuff to harm themselves while they make money on it and laugh about it? Like, it's kind of like, how far can I push my idiot followers to see how bad I can hurt them? That's almost what that feels like to me when you get to that point. That it actually becomes a game. Like, how much money can I make while hurting the people who listen to me? How stupid are these people? Can I really push the envelope and find out how dumb they are? That's what it feels like. And the scary part is, there are probably people out there who are doing all of it right now. And it's just very unfortunate. Alright guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.